Hello, everyone, and I hope you're all well. My name is Tanner Dajne, and I'm the host of Self-Sabotage Solutions. On this podcast, it's my opportunity and my pleasure to be able to share everything I know about self-sabotage so that you can overcome self-sabotage in your life. Now, today I'm going to be talking to you about stress and why you may be stressed and why the majority of the population is stressed, and really how that stress can affect us and cause us to self-sabotage more often. So what you need to know is that stress is a common issue for many people, right? It's not just you if you think you're alone in this. That stress is very common, and there's many different forms of stress. There's the emotional stress, there's stress from physical stress, there's mental stress. There's a bunch of different forms of stress. There's stress on based on what we're eating. There's stress from our work. There's stress from maybe even working out too hard. We could be overstressing our bodies from working out. We could be worrying, and that's a big form of stress. So there's many different forms of stress, and I think it's really important to understand that. Actually, technically, fear is a form of stress. So that's also really important to note because we'll be talking about that further down the line. So the negative impact of stress is, well, it affects our mental and our physical health, right? It affects how we think. It really uses a lot of our energy. If we are in a state of stress, actually your body, the cells themselves will actually start to go to more of a protective stance if you are in a state of stress compared to if you are in a state of love and peace and tranquility. Because if you're in a state of love and peace and tranquility, the cells in your body will actually be in a growth state. When you're in a stressed out state, a fearful state, your body is actually going to be in a more protective stance, in like a more like immune protection stance. So that's really important to understand, is that your body will not be growing and repairing itself as efficiently if you're always in a stressed out state. So that's really important to understand. And where does a lot of stress come from? Well, it can come from like things like work. A lot of it comes from the things that we are doing within our lives, and a lot of us have control over that stress, right? So it can come from work, but also it's from your perception of how work is, right? Because one person can go through the same exact job as another person, and one could be feeling completely stressed out, while the other person's not stressed at all. So it's really important to understand that your thoughts and the way you see things and believe in things and talk to yourself about things really affects the stress in your life. So if you are telling yourself this is too much work, if you're telling yourself that I can't handle this stress, I can't do this anymore, I am feeling extremely stressed out, I'm on the edge, right? You're sending signals to your mind that this is not a good spot for you to be in. So anytime you go back into that spot, you're going to get stressed out again. It's like a programming yourself. It's like a cycle. Coffee, caffeine. Many people don't really understand this, but you're not actually getting energy from that caffeine. What's happening is your body is going into a more alert state. And the reason why it's an alert state is because the caffeine actually puts your body into a form of stress. Really what it does is it increases the cortisol in your body, which puts your body into a flight or flight response. Just like stress does increase the cortisol in your body, and it activates the flight or flight response system. So what you need to know, what that really means is that the same thing's happening to you when you are stressed, when you're drinking caffeine, when you see a tiger, when you're literally in danger for your life. That's the same as that response your body's giving, is that flight or flight response. And that flight or flight response is really that your body is taking its blood from the brain and from other parts of the body that doesn't really need it in those spots, and it's going to be putting it into your arms or to your legs so that you can get out and survive. And so that's really what it does. And you can think about like this: if you are and it actually takes it away from the immune response too. So your body it's not going to be focusing on an immune response. It's not going to be focused on rebuilding you. It's actually going to be focusing on keeping you safe as quickly and as fastly as possible. And oftentimes that means fitting in with the tribe around you. That means getting out in short-term thinking, because um, when you are in those kind of situations, like a saber-toothed tiger is about to attack you, or you're about to get hit by a car, or something else is a perceived threat, really our mind thinks we have to make a quick decision here. We don't have time to think long term. We don't have time to think logically about this. We have to go quick. We have to make a quick decision. And so that's oftentimes where a lot of self-sabotage comes in, because we're no longer thinking long term. And so if we're constantly in a state of stress and a state with caffeine in us, we're watching a lot of news, which has a lot of fear. It's 24/7 fear buffet, right? They're always sharing something that's can make us fearful or worried about the future, and worry is the same thing as fear, is the same thing as stress. So if you're always in that state of stress, you're always going to be thinking long or short term. You're not going to be thinking long term. You're not going to be thinking logically, because when this flight or flight response system activates, it's actually been proven that about 40% of your blood gets taken away from your brain. And really, that's because it's going to be focusing on your arms and your legs so you can fight or run. And when that blood takes away from your brain, your conscious mind really kind of goes offline. And it's more your subconscious mind that takes over. And this is your primitive part of your mind. This is like your reptilian part of your mind. This is the part of your mind that is going to be focusing on the short-term thinking, on fitting in, on just trying to survive. Your prefrontal cortex is turned off, which is your subconscious mind. So you're no longer thinking logically, you're no longer thinking long term, right? So it can come from many aspects. It can come from the things you're putting into your body. So if you're putting caffeine, if you're putting a bunch of toxic chemicals into your body from eating non-organic food, or eating pesticides, herbicides, or fungicides, if you're having a bunch of chemical additives, if you're constantly assaulting your body with alcohol, with poisonous foods, with caffeine, with drugs, with all those things, your body's going to be in a more stressed out state. And so your flight or flight system is going to take over, and you're going to be more short-term thinking, more people pleasing, more fitting in with the crowd kind of vibe, and your general actions are going to mimic that, right? And that leads to a lot more self-sabotage than if you were not doing those things to yourself and you were not in a constant state of stress. So it's really important. This is why I'm talking about this today, is to address that stress. And also, it comes from the television. What things are you watching? Are you watching shows that are going to be giving you more stress in your life? Are you watching a lot of like crime shows where there's like a stressful situation where people are dying, where people are getting hurt? You watching things like The Walking Dead? Are you watching things like Shameless, where there's a constant 24/7 madhouse where they're constantly fighting each other, constantly having problems in life, constantly having drug addictions, constantly going to jail and things like that, right? Having cheating on each other. Are you watching things like the news, where it's 24/7 fear buffet, where they're actually showing you things that are meant to really get you scared and get you worried and get you thinking about things, right? That's what the news is, and that's how they get people to watch it more, because it gets them into that short-term thinking where they're no longer thinking long-term. And so this is really important to think about. And also think about social media, because there's a lot of social media things on TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, all these things where there's a lot of actual fear buffet going stuff on, like a lot of stressful images, memes, and things like that that will actually induce more stress into your life. So you got to be careful of the things that you're putting into your body. You got to be careful of the things that you're listening to, reading to. Be aware of how you're stressing at your body. Another way that people are stressing out their bodies that they don't really know about is the electromagnetic frequencies of their phones, of their laptops, of their Wi-Fi routers, of Bluetooth, of putting Bluetooth speakers in their ears and having a signal from their phone to their ears, literally going into their head, by putting their phone up to their head and having that signal right through your head, right? That increases stress. We're all energetic beings. Think about it. When you when your body is telling you to move your arm up and down, is literally sending you a signal to do so, electrical impulse. So it makes sense that when we have these kind of signals, even though they say they're safe, right? They say a lot of other things are safe too. And I think it's really important to address that. If the doctors say it's safe, if the scientists say it's safe, don't always trust them, and you can't always trust the science that's out there. Actually, I had a previous podcast episode where I talked about 14 reasons not to trust the science, and that got banned off of YouTube because they didn't want me to be telling people why we shouldn't be just trusting the science, right? If you look into science, science is really a skeptical, like if a scientist should have a skeptical mind. They shouldn't be just believing what all other scientists are saying. They should be trying to disprove it and doing their own research, coming to their own conclusions. That's what science is, and trying to disprove the current theories. If they're discouraging us from looking at other alternate theories, there should be a cause for alarm right there, right? So then we want to look at what happens to the body during stress. Well, I kind of talked about the role of cortisol and the fight or flight response, right? The fight or flight response is activated, the blood's drawn from your brain. And what can stress lead to? Well, stress can lead to things like cancer. I'll be having someone on my podcast here very soon who's going to be talking about the effects of cancer and how cancer can be caused. And a big part of it is stress. Chronic stress on your body and your mind can lead to things like cancer, can lead to things like diseases, can lead to things like skin problems or irritations or mental disorders or depression, anxiety, obesity, right? It can lead to all these things because, once again, it's for a big part of the reason is that when you're in a constant stressed out state, your body's not really in that rebuilding part of your cells are not repairing as much as they should be. There might be some that are doing that, but the majority of them are going to be in that defensive stance where they're trying to protect themselves. And actually, a really good book that talks about this is The Biology of Belief by Dr. Bruce Lipton. And I love this book. It's a very good book if you understand how the things that I talk about are actually proven true through science. So we got epigenetics, which is the study of how cells are actually influenced by the world around them and their beliefs, not genes that determine your life. We got quantum physics, where everything is made up of energy, and really manifesting and the things that you say to yourself is actually creating something. And so that's why when you say things to yourself, like telling yourself things are going to be dangerous or things are stressing you out, things like that, you're literally creating that into your life. So you gotta be careful what you're saying to yourself, right? So how does stress lead to more self-sabotage? Well, I kind of talked about it, how stress increases the cortisol, and the cortisol in your brain activates the fight or flight response system, and then, or in your body activates the fight or flight response system, and then you're thinking more short term. You're thinking, you're not thinking logically at that point because your prefrontal cortex, your subconscious, is taken offline and your subconscious mind takes over, right? So really, what is self-sabotage? Well, self-sabotage is taking any illogical action that you shouldn't be doing, and you're doing it anyways. So it could be something that's making you more unhealthy. It could be something that's taking you farther away from your goals. It could be something that is just negatively affecting you in some aspect of your life, right? That's really what self-sabotage is. So the link between stress and self-sabotage, well, it's kind of like a cycle, because once you start getting stressed out, you start to self-sabotage more often, and then oftentimes you're already stressed out. You're gonna start stressing about the things that you're self-sabotaging about. You're gonna start feeling like, oh, I'm not good enough because I wasn't able to do this. Oh, why am I, stopping myself from doing this thing? Why am I stopping myself from stopping to smoke cigarettes? Why can't I commit to my goals? Do I not have the willpower? Is there something wrong with me? That's what I thought for the longest time, and it was adding a tremendous stress and burden on me. And once I start to let that go and realize that, hey, self-sabotage is happening partially because I'm stressed, and partially because I just don't understand how my brain works. And that was a really big game changer for me, was understanding that. But before that, it was a constant cycle, which was getting more and more vicious as my life was going. And I'm so glad I addressed it sooner than later, because that has made a huge impact on my health, on my whole life, my relationships, my wealth, everything, my well-being. So I'm very grateful for that. Um, so some examples of self-sabotaging behaviors caused by stress. Well, I mean, there's a number of listed ideas. Like, you can go anywhere with this. You can go, if you're stressful, oftentimes you're going to be focusing to find something that you can relieve that stress with, right? So you're going to be looking for things like alcohol. You're going to be looking for things like marijuana. You're going to be looking for things like cigarettes, or cocaine, or crack, or whatever kind of drug. It could even be painkillers. For me, it was partially alcohol, but really it was marijuana. I smoked 24/7 every single day. I was always high. And I used that to avoid my stress and to avoid my pain in my life. And that's, not necessarily, I want to say caused by stress, but it was that was my solution to the stress, right? Other forms of stress is that you may just be not able to, you're not going to be able to focus on your goals. You're not going to be able to focus on the things that you want to be focusing on, because you're going to be so stressed out. You're going to have such high amount of worry in your life and low energy, because you're just constantly thinking about those negative things. It can lead to things like depression, right? So, and really that's what's happening, is that the stress cycle starts to break you down. It starts to make it so you're not longer taking care of yourself. When you're stressed out, oftentimes you start to forgo the things that really you should be doing every single day, like working out. Sometimes you're not going to be working out. And I think it's important to address this too. Working out too often is a form of stress on your body. And some people, when they give up other self-sabotaging behaviors, they go really hard into the workouts, and they do some crazy marathons and some Tough Mudder and CrossFit kind of things. And those things aren't always bad, but for some people, that's actually a form of self-sabotage, because they're not ready for it. Their body's not ready for it. And they do it so often that they literally are stressing their bodies out the same exact way they were doing it, but this with a different option. So instead of the alcohol and the marijuana, the poor eating, they're using exercise to beat themselves down and to break down their bodies. So it's important to give yourself the release and the relaxation, right? And it really does lead to like things like cancer and depression and obesity, because stress, like I said before, has an impact on all aspects of our life and all aspects of our health, whether mental or physical. As you're more stressed out, you're going to start to feel like things are out of control. And that's going to increase the stress. It's going to be a compounding effect. So it's really important you start to address your stress, right? And how would stress lead to low energy? Well, it leads to low energy because you're always constantly thinking about something. You're always constantly worried about something. So you're using all your mental capacity to worry. And on another note, when you are in that constant state of flight or flight, it's like, imagine like your heart is just pumping normally, right? You can take your hand and just kind of open and like put into a fist, and don't do it very tight, and just kind of pump it. Like, imagine like just your heart pumping, right? Okay, now take your fist and close it really tight, and then do the same thing. You won't be able to do it for nearly as long because your body is stressed out. That's because your hand is all stressed out, right? That's the same thing as what's happening to your body when you're in flight or flight, is that your blood vessels will constrict, and your body will be trying to pump blood through your body at a more constricted level, which means that you're really acting from even your internal body is stressed out at that point. So it's really important to address the stress again, right? And on top of that stress is going to lead to usually worse sleep, because Oftentimes people who are very stressed out, when they're trying to go to sleep, all they can think about is the things that they're worried about, right? And I have a little tip for if you're worried about stress, well, then you got to think about this. What I like to think about with things about like worrying about things, just in general, there's two categories for things that we worry about. There's things that we have control over, and there's things that we don't have control over. So if you have control over something, then worrying about it is going to be self-sabotage, because you know, because actually your time and your energy and your mental capacity, pretty much your valuable resources, are going to be better used to take action, to start thinking about what you do want, think about, how do I move forward, how do I address these things, right? That's much different than worrying, because if you are worrying about it, oftentimes you're just saying, oh no, this is happening, oh no, this is happening, what am I going to do? And you're thinking negatively. But if you're thinking from a point of, okay, this is what's happening, I'm going to take these steps, and then you're going to start taking those steps towards it. That's where you start to relieve stress. That's where you start to address your stress, the root cause of the problem, the stress, right? The stress is happening because you're worried about something. The stress is happening because you're not in a spot of your life that you really want to be in. So where a lot of stress comes from too is that we don't feel like we're good enough. We're not in a job that we enjoy. We're not in a spot aspect of our life that we enjoy. We're maybe we're abusing ourselves physically and with what we're eating, and we're not taking any exercise, and so our bodies are literally being stressed out. We're not getting that health, and so that is a big form of stress, right? So you need to start addressing the stress sooner than later. And the other aspect of what we can or can't control is, if we can't control it, well, if you can't control what you're worrying about, then why are you worrying about it, right? It's not in your control. So thinking about it and worrying and stressing out over it is actually not going to do anything for you, because you can't even change it anyways. So this is the way I like to think about it, is that really there's no reason to worry about anything. Thinking about how to address something is important, but once you start to worry about it, that's where you're self-sabotaging. And if you start to take actions towards the things that you want, you're going to feel better about them right away, because you already know that you're addressing those things. So that's what is important to do. Start taking steps, and then congratulate yourself along the way, and start to make progress towards addressing those root causes of those things. That's how you start to overcome self-sabotage. That's how you start to overcome stressful situations in your life, because then you are making progress. Then you are moving towards something better, and your mind can see that. You can consciously see those things as you're going, as long as you're focusing on that and you're allowing yourself to. And that comes down to what you're thinking and to what you're telling yourself, right? If you're thinking that, oh, I'm never going to get out of this, I'm not good enough, I'm not going to be able to do these things, then those things are going to become true. But you need to start letting yourself believe in yourself and believe that you're able to address these problems, right? So there's other ways you can start to reduce stress, right? There's grounding, which is a really good way. And really all grounding is, remember how I talked about how we're electrical beings? Well, if you put your feet out in the grass on Mother Earth, and you go barefoot and in the grass and a stream and some water, and you just enjoy yourself for 10 to 15 minutes out in the sun, that is going to be great for your health and reducing stress. And make sure you don't putting any earbuds in. Make sure you're not putting on your sunglasses and putting on over a whole bunch of toxic sunscreen, right? You're going out there to release the stress and the sunshine, the natural earth sounds, the birds singing, the sound of the water, the sound of the leaves rustling. Those things are all going to be therapeutic to your body and help relieve stress, because for thousands of years, our ancestors heard these things. They didn't listen to music. They didn't always listen to music. We were outside way more often back then. And now we're always inside, always on a computer, always on a phone, always listening to a song. But we need to go back to those things, because connecting with nature, connecting with the earth is actually a recharging of our batteries. Like you can imagine that we are batteries, and when we use all of our energy, especially when we're stressed out, we use it even quicker. Then we become into a negative energy cycle, right? So it's important to recharge your battery by grounding, by going outside, getting that sunshine. Sunshine is so good for you, and that's why I say don't wear the sunglasses. I mean, obviously don't look into the sun, but if you're not looking into the sun, most of the times you don't even need a sunglasses. So many people have sunglasses on when they don't need them. Like I don't ever wear sunglasses anymore. I used to do it all the time, even when I was outside and when I didn't really even need it. Now I only wear it if I have to while I'm driving, so I can see where I'm going if I have to drive into the sun, right? Otherwise, I don't. Um, Another thing that can help reduce stress is not sun gazing, but sunset or sunrise gazing. So when the sun's rising or sun setting, it's not as powerful of rays, not as powerful on your eyes. Actually watching that sunset or sunrise can be very peaceful, can be very relaxing, can be a great way to do it. And you're getting some great, awesome benefits in through your eyes if you're not wearing sunglasses. So very highly recommend that. Actually, I look back to a moment on my honeymoon with my wife in Greece when we were on the island of Santorini, and we just sun gazed or watched the sunset, and it was a beautiful night on that island. Man, thinking back to that, that was an amazing time, and I really want to start going back to that sunset watching, a sunrise watching, but sometimes you don't have the opportunity to, but you make the opportunities where you can, right? If you're working during most of the time, so on the weekends, maybe get up or stay up so you can watch that sunrise. And every night you're not going to be able to see it, but do your best to try to see that kind of stuff, right? Put yourself in situations where you can start to reduce your stress. Another thing you can do is meditation. So meditation doesn't look the same for everyone. Some people can do really good with meditation where they're just sitting there quiet, right? Some people need to say a mantra over and over, which is just really just like a phrase like, I am healthy, happy, and wise, right? It could be another easy form of meditation is just closing your eyes and taking your fingers, your thumb and your pointer finger, and rubbing them together. And do it nice and slowly, and start to notice the ridges on your fingers, right? Start to notice the ridges on your fingers and keep going like that. And keep focusing on that for 5 to 10 minutes. Nice and slow. Feel those ridges on your fingers. Really focus on it. Right? That's actually a form of meditation. So you can come up with your own techniques for meditation. Really, meditation is just quieting your mind out and silencing out those things, those worries. And then that little bit, that silence, that peace is actually how you can start to heal your body and kind of get rid of some of that stress. Because once you start to realize that you are more than your worries, a lot of your stress will go away. Exercise is a great form of stress as long as you don't overdo it, right? So a great way to reduce your stress and to address your stress if you don't overdo it. So if you are getting exercise, like right now, I'm actually only exercising every other day. That's what works really well for my body right now. I know people do it different ways. For me right now, I like to do it every other day. And, I highly recommend you listen to your body's cues. If you're feeling exhausted, if you're feeling tired, don't go work out that day. It's okay. But once you're feeling good again, start working out. Get your body moving. When your body moves, your brain grooves. And really, when you're moving your body, your whole health, mind, body, spirit are going to be doing better, because we're meant to be moving around, right? Just like I talked about how we used to be outside all the time with our ancestors. Our ancestors used to move around way more often. Now many of us are just sitting all day, every day on a desk in a cubicle, right? I know me personally, I work at Wells Fargo in a call center. So a lot of the day I am sitting. I try to stand throughout the day. I try to do some stretches. On my breaks, I go and walk around the parking lot. I don't see anyone else doing the same thing. I see some people walking around the building, but like I said, get outside, get some fresh air. I don't understand why people are so avoid going outside. get yourself some fresh air. It's so important. Get that fresh air, especially if you once you start to understand that indoor air pollution is actually worse than outdoor air pollution, even in like the cities. A lot of times, like they've done studies where indoor air pollution due to people's like Febrezes and all those things, that indoor air pollution is actually much worse than the what's in like major cities. So get outside, get some of that fresh air. We're meant to be outside. We're meant to be getting this fresh air. We're meant to be getting the sun. We're meant to be getting exercise. We're meant to be moving. The next one is you can just take like a nice cold or warm shower or a bath or something just to help you de-stress, right? Put on, don't even, I wouldn't recommend even putting on music, just laying there and relaxing. If you're going to put music on, put something on without lyrics, put something on that has like a 425 hertz, I think it is. That's the earth frequency. Put something on like that where it's just like meditation music and relax. Put something on that's going to help you relax, right? If you're putting on a lot, it's important to know a lot of music nowadays, the frequency of the music is actually a more stressful frequency than really it should be, because it changes and it starts to alter our frequency of our bodies. And that's why grounding can be so important, because it can get you back into the earth's frequency of the 400, actually I think it's 428 hertz, sorry about that, 428 hertz for the earth frequency. And if you can start getting your body back into that frequency, it's going to be very powerful for you. Another way you can start to overcome stress is really to start putting in healthy, organic, nutrient filled foods, right? Start to cut out those processed foods. Start to cut out those foods that are highly sprayed with herbicides, fungicides, pesticides. If it's not organic, a lot of time that's what you're getting, unless you're going to like a farmer's market and you're talking to the farmer and they're saying they're not putting those things on. And if they're being real, then that food that's not being sprayed with all those chemicals is going to be your best choice, right? So, and you can also support a local farmer, so that's going to be a great option, right? Look at getting foods that are going to build you up instead of tear you down, right? You want the inside of your body to not be stressed, and then it's going to be much easier to have the outside of your body not stressed as well. So start to put those good, healthy foods into your body. Look at what else you're putting onto your body. Are you putting any chemicals? Are you putting any things? You're filtering your water, right? Water is super important. We're about 70% water. So how are you getting your water? Is it just tap water? Is it through a bottle? What kind of water are you having? Are you filtering it? I highly recommend filtering it. And look at your city's water supply. Go to Google, type in my city, the name of your city and water supply, and go look and see what they put in the water. Did they put chlorine in there? Yes, most places put chlorine in there. Do they put fluoride in it? A lot of cities put fluoride in it, and fluoride has actually been proven to reduce IQ and increase cancer because it causes stress on the body. So once again, what are you putting into your body? What kind of things are you putting into and onto your body? And that means the shower. I have a shower filter. What kinds of things are you putting into and onto your body? Do you have aluminum in your deodorant sticks? Do you have fluoride in your toothpaste? Right? All these things are really important to think about. Are you cooking with non-stick pans? Teflon. Teflon has been proven to be very unhealthy for your body. So all these things, all these toxic things increase the amount of stress in your body. You don't have to do them all at once, but as you start to look through these things, start to address them one by one, and your stress levels are going to decrease, and your health is going to increase, and your self-sabotage is going to decrease at the same time, because you're no longer in a constant state of stress. You're going to be able to start thinking logically. Start to remove the stressors into your life. Start to remove the negative social media. Start to remove the coffee and the alcohol and the drugs. Start to remove the fear, the news. Start to remove a lot of the TV shows that are fearful and putting you into a state of stress, or that are very have a lot of killing and things like that, right? We don't want to be fearful. We don't want to have that stress into our life. What you might not know is that our subconscious mind, the strongest part of our mind, which actually is responsible for about 95% of our totally daily thoughts and actions. This part of our mind is constantly looking and scanning the environment at 11 million pieces of information per second. It's a supercomputer that's constantly taking in data to try to filter in and say, what's the easiest way for me to survive? What's the easiest way for me to fit in with society? Because it knows that fitting with society is going to be the easiest way for to survive. So if you are showing it a bunch of images of things that are very negative, like people dying all the time, crime scenes, Walking Dead zombies, Shameless, where there's a shit show in their lives every single day, that's what your subconscious mind is going to start mimicking, because it says that's what society is doing. It can't tell the difference between fiction and reality. So you gotta be the one consciously who's guarding and protecting yourself. So you gotta make sure you're not putting in those things. Make sure you're not surrounding yourself with negative people, right? These are all solutions you can do to start reducing stress in your life. And then start getting more sleep, right? Be aware of how much sleep you're getting in your life. Things that can help you increase the amount of sleep you're getting. If you have a hard time sleeping, work out early in the morning. Start to have more melatonin, increase the amount of melatonin in your body. You can do this by getting sour tart cherry juice. You can get this from any health food store. Make sure it's organic and drink that probably an hour before bed. If you're looking for a good product for that, I do work with a company named Purium. I can get you a 25% discount. I really like it. That's what I drink before bed. And sometimes my wife actually doesn't drink it, because since we got a 10-month-old, when she drinks it, she kind of gets a little too sleepy in the middle of the night. And so if she has to wake up with him, she doesn't like to do that, because she is like in a daze. I can still get up in the middle of the night with it, but I have a great sleep when I drink that stuff. It has very high antioxidants as well. So, but you don't have to get it from me. You can get it from the store. So understanding where you're getting these things from and starting to increase the amount of health you have and get more sleep, right? So increase those melatonin production. Avoid bright lights before you go into bed, because all these bright lights are going to be convincing your subconscious mind, or sorry, not your subconscious mind, your body and your mind in general, that you are going to be still awake. The sun's still out. Back in the day, we didn't have these bright lights, these screens all the time. And so our bodies more naturally start producing melatonin. Melatonin is the chemical that our pineal gland produces when we are going to bed, when we are getting sleepy, when we're getting relaxed, right? And that's just important to note that if you have a lot of fluoride in your toothpaste, in your water all the time, that's actually been proven to calcify over your pineal gland, which means that it's not going to be producing the melatonin and the serotonin the same way it should. So that could be an indication of why you're having a hard time sleeping, or an indication of why maybe you're not feeling as happy and feeling as good and alert throughout the days. You're always feeling tired, partially probably due to less sleep and not being able to have that melatonin production, but partially also to not being able to produce the serotonin. So it's very important to remove that fluoride from your body and from your diet. Make sure you're not having your water. Make sure you don't have it in your toothpaste, right? And when you go to the dentist, be careful. I would avoid the fluoride there as well. Look into that fluoride. What else? Coping with stress strategies. So I think we talked about really a lot of the ways we can cope with stress. There's many different ways you can cope with stress. You'll find something that works for you. Just make sure you're being aware of if your method is actually not really dealing with it, just covering it up. Things like marijuana, alcohol, those kind of things can actually just lead to a cover up of the stress, right? Of relieving that stress instead of actually addressing the stress. Because then you wake up in the morning, you're hungover. Marijuana is definitely a much better spot than alcohol. But what I found with marijuana is that I never would address the root causes of my stress, because I'd always be high instead. So that caused a very negative cycle for me. So really what we talked about today, right? We talked about why stress, why you may be stressed out. We talked about why the majority of the population is stressed out. We talked about different things that affect stress, things like health, things like the things you're putting into and onto your body, things like coffee, alcohol, the food, non-organic food, processed foods, fast foods. We talked about TV and social media and songs and how those affect us and our stress. We talked about the news. We talked about fearful thoughts, the way you're thinking, the words you're telling yourself, right? We talked about the people around you. All these things affect your stress. And we talked about some solutions to stress. We talked about how your body reacts to stress with the cortisol increase and the flight or flight response. So overall, these are the reasons why you're stressed, right? And this is the solutions to address your stress. You gotta start taking back the power. If you just tell yourself, I don't have any ability to change this, or that's too much for me, I'm not gonna do it. Well, then whatever you're not changing, you're choosing. So just remember this. If you are in a spot of your life that you really are feeling frustrated at, or broken, or feel like you can't get out of it, you can. If you're not going to change it, you are choosing that life. You got to this point in your life because you took certain actions and you got to this point. It may be hard to hear, to own up to the fact, but you're here because of the things that you've done. Now, the only way to get out of this spot is to start taking new actions and to bring yourself to a new spot with the actions that you take it then. If you continue taking the same actions that you got you here with, or actions that are going to keep you more stuck, things are going to get worse because stress has a compounding effect. And that's just the truth of the situation. I'm not trying to make you feel bad. I just want you to be aware that you need to address these things. No one else can do it for you. People can be here to support you. I can be here to teach you all about the subconscious mind and about health principles and things like that. But I can't force you to do it. Just like you can't force you can lead a horse to water, but you can't force it to drink. It's the same kind of thing. I can lead you to the information, but I can't force you to make the changes. Only you can do that. And at the end of the day, I wouldn't want to force you to do it. I would want you to choose it for yourself, because it's a much more powerful place to be. It's a much better place to be. And I promise you, it's going to feel so good. So anyways, guys, hope you all have a wonderful day. Thank you for listening. Leave a like, a comment, subscribe. Always so grateful to anyone who supports my work. I really, really appreciate it, guys. And make sure to check out my other podcasts and keep an eye out for my next podcast coming out, where I'll talk with Paul Ledoucier, I think it is, who is actually all about overcoming cancer and addressing the root causes of cancer. And it's going to be a really good one. So that will come out next Thursday. So keep an eye out for that. And yeah, have a good rest of your day, guys. Thank you.